So the Adult Community Learning Service, we run family learning in schools, libraries, children's centres. We work in partnership with the City Lit and the prisons, so we do family learning in the prisons. Well, there's only one now in Camden. There was two, one disappeared. So we're just in Pentonville now. Yes, and the project I'm here to talk to you about today is on the back of the white British families' children failing across the country. The research was showing that they're really struggling. So quite a few years ago I did a project where we brought the families, we targeted the schools, brought the families in and basically did family learning, and their thing was, well, it's not my job, it's the teacher's job. Why am I doing anything? And they had barriers galore. They had, the jokes about King's Cross and what they didn't do and did do, and it was so, they just sort of degraded themselves. It was like they were no good and they acted like that. But by week 3, they were like absolutely enjoying it, and when I collect the evaluation at the end, what did you learn today? What could I have done differently? What else is there? And one of them said to me, will your manager see this? I said, well, we look at everything, everyone shares it, and she put on it that I needed a pay rise. So I thought that was a good sign that she'd actually turned around and was enjoying what she was doing. But for a lot of them, it was a big step for them to come in and realise that they needed to help their children because they didn't feel that they did. The other thing is a barrier was when they, especially in Camden, when they see other parents in a session, they don't feel it's for them because it's normally the majority are Bengali parents or Somali parents, so they feel that it's not for them, so they didn't engage. Here I am.
Yeah, there's a wee problem with it, so you might miss out a couple of pictures or whatever.
It's
clicker here somewhere.
It's clicking by itself. It's gone. It's gone. Maybe just leave it open and I'll just tap the screen rather than I don't know if that's me or it's what I'm not very good at PowerPoint and Twitter. I need a family learning class for that myself. Yes, so the White British Parent Champion project came about on the back of the project I was telling you about, where we got the White British parents in to support their children. So we applied for funding. Let's see if this works now. There we go. So in December in 2015, no, it's not going to do it. It's going to keep running. How do I stop it?
It might be better just to go to the.
I think I'll just do it this way, and then that way it will do what I'm telling it to do.
I think it's got an error in it.
It will listen. Yeah, so in the beginning a bid was made to the Equalities Task Unit to develop the parent champions from Camden's white British working class community, and that came about because of the research I was telling you about where the white British children were struggling. Camden Adult Community Learning and Camden Learning, we were both part of the initial project, got together and produced a programme. So we were told at first that they wanted us to employ 6 white British parents to go out there and get other parents to come into any family learning to support their children. But for me that meant that would be a lot of work to find out, would they know what they were doing? Would they know how to do it? Would we know that they were doing it when we gave them their wages at the end of the month? How would you manage that or measure it? So we came up with the idea. So we initially invited all the head teachers from Camden, and I think 10 schools came up, and we just said, we told them about the programme and we asked them if they wanted to be involved. So what they had to do was they had to agree to personally choose 2 white British parents and invite them to come along to, I decided with the money that we had, I'd use that as an incentive to get them to initially come to the information day. And so the head teachers did that, and over 25 parents turned up, which was a shock, so I just wasn't expecting that many, from 10 primary schools across the borough, and 18 enrolled and stayed. Oh, the image hasn't come. Okay, so I've got a picture here I can show you. I'm not sure why the images haven't uploaded. something to plan B, family learning, always have a plan B. So I took a lot of time to think about the publicity, because I thought, what's going to make them come? They don't come anyway. Asking them to come in and be a parent champion, what is that to them? They wouldn't. So I took a lot of time figuring out the publicity. So the chocolate cake, the coffee, and the £20 voucher that they would get for coming, that was their invitation. Just come along and find out, you don't have to stay. So rather than paying 6 people over 2 years all this money, I decided to use the money and reach as many people as I could. So, and it obviously worked, because 25 people turned up. One of the head teachers, when we were having the discussion, was quite, she wasn't happy with the fact that they were going to just be paid for coming onto a course. Because going back a step, so I decided to do a 10-week course where the parents would get to earn up to £300, where they'd learn skills about being a parent champion, what it entailed, what they'd have to do, and also learn a bit about family learning. So I'd put family learning in there, because I think if you want to sell something and you do it and you know, oh wow, is this it? Yes, and then you can go out there and have a voice and say, well, I've done it, it's really good. And so that's what, so they could earn a possible £300 over 10 weeks, and I did it in Sainsbury's vouchers, so it wouldn't affect any benefits, and it would give them a bit of shopping at the end of the week. And so what I tried to sort of, I said it to them, because on the back of the head teacher saying, oh, they're just getting money for coming, I sold it to them as it's like an apprenticeship. We're doing like an apprenticeship. We're coming, you're learning the skills, and then at the end and then you're getting paid for work you're going to do after. So you're going to go out there and get all those parents to come in to other stuff. So I used this, a colleague of mine had used this programme before, and it's excellent, and it's an accredited programme, and it was done initially by NIAS and some other partnerships, and it was revised in 2013. And what I did was I picked out all the good bits that I liked, that I thought the parents would enjoy, and left all the bits that I thought were boring out. And so we looked at the role and the qualities of a PC, parent champion. We looked at learning journeys, so I looked at their learning journeys. They all spoke about their learning journeys, and from their learning journeys we identified barriers and what stopped them and what's stopping them now, and what would it take for them to be able to do more for themselves. And then we looked at the next steps. So that was what, it's a shame none of the images have come out. So that was what the course was, and they absolutely enjoyed it. I mean, by week 2, I'm a family learning teacher. I've never taught anything like this, but by the second week I was like, oh, I can't do this. They were really scared. There was 18 of them, I don't think, and they were just really loud, and they were really excitable, and they were there. And by the end of week 2, by the end of that session, I absolutely loved it, and and I'm doing it again this term, and I can get to do it again next year, so it's really good. So the impact, attendance, obviously they were getting £30 a week if they came. If they didn't come, they didn't get the money. All 18 parents, and I asked them at week 3, if you didn't have that £30, would you have come? And they all, 18 of them, put their hands up and said no. They would not have come on a parent champion course. But by week 3, they said their attitudes had changed, and they were really enjoying the programme, and they would carry on. And at the end, they said, can we come next week? We don't want any money, can we come? I said, no, it's Christmas holidays. Let's go away. Leave me alone. It was like they were just really excited by the course, and they absolutely loved it and what they got from it. Oh, no picture. Okay, so progressions. So, okay, when they came into the environment, they were saying, I remember them rubbing the desk saying, oh, this is a learning environment, this is not too bad, I like this. It's not. I've always wanted to do my GCSEs, or I've always wanted to do English or some kind of literacy. So on the back of that, I invited in our teacher Sophie, who came in. She did a really good quiz, and so she did a quiz about the English language, and they had to answer true or false. And then she did a quiz about herself, because again, when people they thought she went to Cambridge University, they thought their perception of her was something they would not have gone to because of who she was. But she absolutely did her whole life story, you know, even like, have you ever been arrested was one of the, had she ever been arrested was one of the questions. But the conversation, the laughing, you know, the getting it right and wrong, and it was such a good rapport that they all, 7 out of the 18 signed up to do, so we called it Enjoy English, because we have lots of ESOL classes for our parents, but we didn't, every time we tried an English course, it didn't ever work, the parents didn't come. So she looked at all the things that they'd said they wanted to do, and she put a course together which she's running now and carrying on again next term. So that worked really well. Okay, so you won't see Emma, but you'll see her here. So one of the parents, she used to do party planning for her family and friends, and she was and like when we had our celebration, I don't know if you can see it, she's parent champions, and you'll see why she put hands on the cake at the end when I show you the next bit. But that through discussion about what she could do, she decided. They said, why aren't you doing it for yourself? Why aren't you getting paid? And on the back of that, she then joined, we do spreadsheet courses and web design under the adult community learning umbrella. So she's joined both those classes. She's loving it, and she was sitting a practice test the other day when I saw her, because she wants to now go into college to do her maths and English. So she's on her journey. She started a journey that she would have never even thought about doing if she hadn't come on the course. Charlotte's amazing. She's another amazing parent. When she first came, she was so nervous. This is a case study that we've done. She's there's a spelling gone a bit wrong in there. Before she came, I didn't know till about week 4 when we had the Camden magazine come in to do an interview, and she told him, she hadn't ever told us, that she felt when a teacher invited her, she felt physically sick to come in and do anything, because all her life she'd lived in her brother's shadow. He was the bright one and he was the teacher, and she was just no good. That's how she saw herself. But on the course, you know, I remember her sitting there one week and saying, oh, people ask me what do I do? Like, I'm a parent champion. And she was so proud of just being that parent champion. And then she, throughout the course, she became a really popular member of the class. And then she, I remember her emailing me saying, oh, will you give me a reference? And she went for her first job and she got it. And she was so excited. And she said, when I rang my dad and said, oh, I've gone for a job, Dad, and I've got a job, and said, you're lying. But you know, it's like, because she'd never, I know, that's the thing, that's what she's had to live with, but now she is flying, she's so proud, and you know, it's just such a, and I'm, you know, it was only last term this happened, so I'm guessing I'm going to find out loads more. Yep, so we had some of the parents did an interview. He came in and met the group and they did an interview, so they were in the Camden magazine, and one of them was a grandmother who'd inherited her grandchildren, and she was saying, if my grandchildren say they can't do it, I say you can't do it yet. So these are some of the family learning stuff that we put in there. We did the growth mindset, we looked at fun maths with Smarties, we, you know, spellings, we did lots of fun activities that they actually really enjoyed and can't wait to go out and start doing it in their schools. Natalie said, I have gained confidence and found different ways to help my children with their learning. The 2 at school are doing really well with their homework now, because before this she didn't have a clue how to help them. And Stacey said, this is a really worthwhile way to help parents to help their kids, so their kids don't fall behind. So it was all this, the key messages that were coming out from this course. It's not a picture now, so going back. Yep, so, so then at the end we had some money, so we got in the October Gallery, and an artist, Marissa Dowlings and Georgie Fay, came in and they created a series of photographs and an art installation, but they used like silk printing, and when she first came in to get their ideas, they said, oh, I'm not doing that, oh, I don't want to do that. They looked at different media and they were like, don't want to do that. But the lovely thing about this was they had to come up with an idea of what they wanted to display, because there was an exhibition coming up, and they decided they would use hands, big hands and small hands, because this is what it was about. They they're holding their children's hands and then holding everybody else's hands in the playground, because that was another key thing that came out of this. As much as they were there to support the white British parents to come into the schools to do better, they all said that as a community they would target the white British, but they would target all parents, which I thought was really lovely. Oh, this is a shame, because this is the actual, so basically that's some class, they're using their hands, they were looking at different ways, taking photographs, and then they had to silk screen them and then draw around them, and it was quite intense, but they every single one of them enjoyed it. And then they were doing things like going outside the door and putting like shadows up. And this is a picture of how it was displayed in an exhibition. They had a pop-up exhibition, and so all their pictures that they chose. And then they brought their families to see the They were so proud because they'd never had anything like this before. So the children all brought along to the exhibition to see what their mummies had done. And Dad, actually, we had a dad. We did have a dad. Right, so that's just a picture, I'm sure, of the British Museum. Yeah, because we have a big, every year we have a celebration of achievement across the ACL, and family learning, it's always, for me, it's so important. So we get the whole theatre, we don't pay anything because of our partnership with the British Museum. We get a whole theatre, and our learners we nominate, the teachers across the board nominate, and the parents get dressed up and come and receive their invite. So this group, this programme is going to be nominated, but there's going to be individual nominations, so Charlotte, Emma, and there's a few more. So that's going to be happening in July, and we have the mayor and we have the director of education, and it's a lovely event. And for a lot of them, it's the first time they've ever got a certificate. It's the first time they've ever achieved anything, and they're just so proud. It's such a lovely thing to be a part of. Also, so we started last term. I'm doing another one this term. The course that I did this term, the parent champions from last term recruited for. And so the summer term, I'm not going to have another group. I'm going to go out and I'm going to meet with them in their schools. I'm going to get them in for an evaluation day so I can then do their videos for this celebration event, because that's always quite powerful. And I'm just going to do a lot more work with the ones that we've got over the last 2 terms to support them to see how it's going, troubleshoot. Is there anything else you need before I start the next programme, because I've got 2 years, so I can do another programme in September. So and then also now the schools have also put on their workshops. So now next term, the family learning workshops are going to happen, which is really good for me, because now they're trying to get me in to do what they promised, which is brilliant. And so we're going to see how that goes. So that hopefully will be the next part of it. And yeah. So this was Christmas. They decided that we should all wear Christmas jumpers. Nobody else did, apart from the 2 hiding at the back. So it's just me at the front with my Christmas jumper. Yeah. So thanks, team. But this is the group. This is the first group that started this off, and hopefully it's going to have a huge impact, because I know the biggest problem is if you haven't got someone amazing in the school who's going to go out and drag all those parents in, you're sort of fighting the losing battle. So having these parents in place that we can call on, and they're already recruiting for, we've got a health and wellbeing day tomorrow, and they've all collected the flyers and gone out and started doing, so it's already working, and it's, yeah. So are there any questions? Sorry if I've talked too much, it's a bit long.
No, I just think it's brilliant, and it really chimes with a lot of the feedback that we got in the Summer Reading Challenge review, which was that this kind of, that being the hardest audience to reach with the Summer Reading Challenge, or to engage with, whereas in other areas and in other targets, the community was really showing that the Summer Reading Challenge was doing quite well in terms of diversity, but not in its widest sense in terms of engagement with families.
Which I think is what we got the money on the back of, because they're just not.
10 years ago in Sheffield, the mainstay of our learners in family learning were our white Indigenous population. Now we can't engage them. It's really tricky.
It was interesting. One of the mums said to me, one of the comments was, well, I go to the family learning courses and there's all these mums there that know everything, and I sit at the back and I think, oh, I don't think I should be here, it's not for me. And again, you can't say who can come or who can't come, and it is good that mums are, anybody is involved in their parents' learning, but, and then it just makes the divide come back, because they don't, either they didn't feel it was for them because of the group that's in there, or they felt that all those mums know everything, and I just felt a bit stupid, so I just thought there's no point in me staying. So there's lots of barriers that hopefully this bunch of parents will be able to dispel, because there was a lot of that on the barriers.
So I was going to say it is good because again it's that peer-to-peer thing,
Yeah.
which can long-term bring about behavioural change more than we're going to do this for a term.
Well, I don't know about you, but we did some feedback after every course, and one of the questions was, how did you hear about the course? And 98% it was word of mouth.
Yeah.
That's 98% every time. We did that over about 5 years, and that was the biggest way that people heard about us. And also understanding that it's not scary. They can go out there and say, no, you won't look stupid, it's fine, I did it.
Well, when we did the first EF project, the family animate learning, which was a family learning program, we did a parental engagement kind of structure that monitored at which point the parents engaged in the program, and we had a 13-week leading, which was, you know, very a luxury. You don't normally have that. Every single place we went, it was the word of mouth and personal invitation from the child that engaged them in coming in. So we've included that in all of the stuff that we've done since.
Yeah, it's powerful, isn't it?
I think it says quite a lot about the motivation as well. I know Charlotte mentioned something in her presentation about what motivates people to engage. And they were obviously quite open and said actually the motivation in the beginning wasn't money.
Yeah.
But actually as they progressed,
they wanted
that
it,
wasn't
it wasn't the most important thing. But I do think if it's like one of the parents who had been, that I've got now, that was in the initial family learning, because that was just a family learning project, she said it was brilliant while we were doing it, but once the course stopped, you just slip back into your old ways. And it's really stayed with me, that, because I'm just thinking there needs to be something more that is to keep them going, and to not just have them, I mean, you do try to progress them onto loads of, you know, stuff, and you follow them and you try to guide them, but it is the family learning stuff with the children that when they stop doing that. But some of the activities, you know, you still meet parents and, oh, we still play that game and we still do that together, so.
Can I ask, what proportion of your head teachers supported it?
10 schools across Camden. We invited all of them.
So how many do you have in total?
Do you know, Louise?
No, you
There's
don't
so
mean
many.
it's
No,
precise.
I'm not
I'm
sure,
just thinking,
yeah.
you know, are there still, but I suppose where I'm going with it, are there still some head teachers that are resistant, or
I think
or
it's that a lot of head teachers are so busy they don't read their emails, because what I found out now, when I'm going into new schools, I don't email the head teacher. I find a TA that I know. I know somebody's daughter who is a TA in that school, and I know somebody's uncle who does something in that school, and that's how I get in the door, because the emails don't get answered. So the fact that they did come back to those might have been because the person I worked with, Martin Cresswell, he was part of the school support program, improvement program, and now they're doing Camden Learning. They've changed title, but he was still, and I think he had a lot of respect from the head teachers from the work that he's done in the school, so they listened to him. They knew his name.
Just you mentioned that you had a male parent as well. So
Yes, we did.
What was the male parent's experience?
He was hysterical. He drove me mad for about 3 weeks. I had to like, the group dynamics were crazy. It took me a long time to work out who to put with who. He was quite proud. He was disabled, but he was quite proud of the fact that he was the only dad there, and he was. He was interesting, but he absolutely loved it, and everybody, you know, used to embrace him. He was just funny. He was very funny. But what was good about him is I think comedy was his barrier. So he just, everything was funny. And then when they did their learning journeys, and actually told me about his learning, the stuff that he'd been through, I was, you know, all of them. When I read it, I was like nearly in tears. So I gave personal feedback to each one. And so as much as I acknowledged what he'd done, I said, but I believe in you. I think you're amazing. What's for you? And he still made a joke about it, but afterwards he said, thanks for that. He said, what do I want to do? And we had a conversation about what he'd like to do and how, you know, it was just on the back of saying, I think you're amazing and what you've been through. And so as much as he joked, I broke him in the end. I got him.
You're such the right person for what you do, honestly. You know, just tell the way you talk, you know.
Well, it was your
No wonder
story
it
that,
is.
because I have the same story. I had aspirations for my children as they were growing up, like, so it didn't matter that I was on benefits and how I started life. I had aspirations for my children. And then when they went to primary school, I then, I think a friend, so like a parent champion, dragged me to college, and I actually enjoyed it and liked it and stayed. And then I did my child development and did nursery nursing. I was a nursery nurse, and on the back of that I did family learning, and I really enjoyed it. And then the family learning manager at the time said, would you like a job? And I was like, really? And I was a single parent, and it was like, I can't afford to not have money, you know. But then I went for that job, and it was my manager and an Ofsted consultant came in and said, oh, you know, you should become a teacher, you should do the qualification. I was like, are you mad? Me go to university, you're crazy. But it was a light bulb moment, and I thought, oh, okay, so I did. And, you know, so when I share this story with the learners and I say, you know, I know, and then at the end I put my graduation picture up with my grown-up children standing, because they had the same aspirations for me that I had for them. And it's so there, so you can do it, Mum, all those sleepless nights. And in those days there weren't computers, it was like 2 sides of an A4 sheet, and you get to the bottom, it was really messy, you have to start again. But they were the ones saying, Mum, you can do it, and all the stuff I said to them, they then used on me. And so the parents look at you differently, and because I say I'm a parent before I'm anything. And I do love my job.
And actually,
And I do, absolutely. There's not enough hours in the day to do my job. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.